On to Warlock now. We have Altar of Fire. 1 mana, destroy the top 3 cards of each deck. Fire spell. Were it not for the Poison Rogue card, this would be my pick for most overrated card of the set. So, Nosferatu isn't good most of the time because it destroys combo pieces from your opponent's deck. The reason people started playing that in Reno Lock was because it makes up for all the cards you draw with your hero power in Fatigue. This card does not give you fatigue advantage. Ticketus is for the same reason for the most part. You want to accelerate your opponent to fatigue so that they start taking damage faster than you. It does have some applications when it comes to removing combo pieces. If this card is remotely meta, then Raza players will play around it with their Polk Out. And they're already doing that because of Nosferatu anyway. While you could play this and get rid of their Raza or their Anduin blind, you could also get rid of your own Nazoth and Gul'dan, and then how are you beating them? I don't think that this is a good card for going after combo pieces compared to Nosferatu and Ticketus, and I don't think this is a good card at all for accelerating your opponent to fatigue. They've gone for like a package of delete your own deck and have some payoff for it, but you could accidentally delete that payoff in trying to do so. It just seems like a really wonky archetype. I don't see a place for this at all. Apothecary's Caravan, 2 mana 1/3 at the start of your turn, summoning 1 cost minion from your deck. This is the one that feels the most playable to me. You're playing it in an aggressive deck, you've probably played something on 1, and then this just keeps pulling stuff out for you. Even still feels like a standard card. I don't think it's very good. Barrens Scavenger, 6 mana 6/6 taunt, costs 1 less while your deck has 10 or fewer cards. I don't think that the mill yourself Warlock archetype is going to be a thing. However, Darkglare Warlock is already running Zephrys because of how fast you draw through your deck. It does value big bodies for cheap. This isn't a 0 mana 8/8, but it is a 1 mana 6/6 with taunt, and you do draw a ton of cards in Darkglare. I don't know that this actually does make the cut, but if it does go anywhere in Wild, I imagine it's in a deck like that. Bloodshard Bristleback, 3 mana 3/3 lifesteal Battlecry. If your deck contains 10 or fewer cards, deal 6 damage to a minion. Mecha'thun and Cthulhu the Shattered Warlock want to draw their whole deck and then play a Cthulhu. And they value gaining 6 health and removing a minion from the board. I think that if this sees play in anything, it'll be in decks like that. Grimoire of Sacrifice, 1 mana, destroy a friendly minion, deal 2 damage to all enemy minions, shadow spell. So this is much like Plague of Flames. It is situationally worse and situationally better. So if you can match the same amount of minions your opponent has, Plague of Flames always kills all of them regardless of their health total. But this allows you to kill more things for less sacrifice. Your opponent goes wide with pirates on 1, and then on your turn you like play Mistress of Mixtures, coin this, and then you clear them all. This is good in most of the ways that Plague of Flames is good, and it's also good just with Void Caller in order to accelerate a demon. I imagine this will see play in a lot of slower Warlock decks. Imp Swarm, 2 mana Fell Spell, summon a 3/2 Imp. You get 2 at rank 2 and you get 3 at rank 3. Feels like a standard zoo card. It might almost be good enough for something in Wild, but I think it's very almost. Cabal Outfitter, 3 mana 3/3 Battlecry and Death Rattle. Give another random friendly minion +1/+1. This is 3 mana for 4/4, and then when it dies, if it dies at the right time, it'll give something else +1/+1. I can't think of a Warlock deck that wants this in Wild. Nero Fireblade, 5 mana 5/5 Battlecry. If your deck is empty, open a portal that fills your board with 3/2 imps each turn. So this is better than the Lakari Sacrifice quest because it doesn't have to start in your opening hand. It doesn't require you to discard a bunch of your cards. It also fills your board with more imps. It fills your board with imps at the end of your opponent's turn. So even if they clear them, you have them able to attack coming back to your turn. The problem is your deck has to be empty. If you're accelerating your deck to be empty, I think that you're better off playing Mecha'thun or even Cthulhu the Shattered to actually kill your opponent right there. I actually can think of one use for this in Wild, and it's in Reno Lock as a tech for the mirror. So if you are a Reno Lock player, often encountering a Reno Lock opponent, you're going to fatigue a lot of the time, and you and or your opponent are probably running Ticketus. So not only is this pretty good when the deck is empty, but it also gives you another thing to possibly have not destroyed by Ticketus. Always having 18 damage to trade and to pressure for the rest of the game could very well make the difference in these mirrors. Soul Rend, 4 mana shadow spell, deal 5 damage to all minions, destroy a card in your deck for each killed. For the purposes of accelerating your deck to emptiness so that you can play your 5/5 or your Nami, whatever, I don't think that's very good. The problem with those type of archetypes is, what if the 5/5 or your Nami are the card discarded? I don't know about that, but it is 4 mana for deal 5 damage to the board, which is pretty good. And against aggro, you really don't care about most of the cards in your deck. Even if you end up destroying 7 cards with this, it's not like you're going to fatigue. You might discard your Reno, but that's the same as your Reno being on the bottom of your deck. If you include this card in your deck, it's going to be because it's really effective at killing aggro, and the deck discard is not much of a downside. Even then, I'd be surprised if it sees play. Tamsin Roam, 3 mana 1/3. Whenever you cast a shadow spell that costs 1 or more, add a copy to your hand that costs 0. So, I can't confirm, but I have heard that Power Overwhelming will be a shadow spell. Dark Bomb seems like it might be a shadow spell. On 5, if you have a minion out, you can play this, then Power Overwhelming your minion twice, which adds 2 free Power Overwhelmings to your hand. And then you can just put those on the minion too. For 16 burst on turn 5. A little bit later, you can add more on top of that with the Dark Bomb, right? So each Dark Bomb is worth 6 damage with this out. So at 9 mana, you can do all of that together. 22 damage on top of whatever minion damage you already have. If all of those cards are shadow spells, this card seems insane to me. I don't even know what else you would do with this. Yeah, this card might have a big impact on WoW. First for Warrior, we have Bulk Up. 2 mana, give a random taunt minion in your hand, +1/+1, and copy it. We're getting Serenite Chain Gang back, which is kind of cool. Play this on 2, coin Serenite on 3, and you get 2 3/4s, and then you can follow that up with 2 more 3/4s. I don't know how worth it I think that is, but it's something cool you can do. I could easily see a Taunt Warrior including this. It's just, will the Taunt Warrior be good enough? The 3 mana charging taunt does exist, so you could try to build one of those up really big and then copy it. It'll be fun to try. Conditioning, 2 mana, give minions in your hand +1/+1. It becomes +2/+2 at rank 2 and +3/+3 at rank 3. A hand buff Taunt Warrior would play this card, probably. I don't know how good it's going to be outside of that though. Morshan Elite, 5 mana 4/4 Taunt Battlecry. If your hero attacked this turn, summon a copy of this. There is the 3 mana card that gives a taunt minion in your hand +5/+5, and there is again that copy taunt card. This could be good in that. You buff on 3, play a weapon on 4, and then attack and then play this on 5. Is that good enough for Wild? I'm not sure. It's probably too inconsistent and too slow. Outrider's Axe, 4 mana 3/3. After your hero attacks and kills a minion, draw a card. This card is insane to me. I don't know where I'm going to put it, but the card itself is phenomenal. You almost consider this for Dead Man's Hand just because they want to draw their deck so much. Even then, probably not. Maybe a Charge OTK Warrior could play this. 4 mana 3/3 alone is a pretty good weapon, and on top of that, if you decide to kill a minion with it, you draw a card. I think this card is phenomenal. I'll be surprised if we don't see it pop up somewhere. Is it the weapon that Reno Warrior needed in order to be more of a thing? I doubt it. But this is even, there isn't even board clear in here. Even Warrior was missing a board clear, so maybe. The best thing I can think to do with this is put it in meme decks. But if it doesn't have a deck now, it's just going to pop up as soon as its deck formulates later. Overlord Sauerfang, 7 mana 5/4, Battlecry, resurrect 2 friendly Frenzy minions, deal 1 damage to all other minions. I think that the best Frenzy minion is Samuro, and Samuro is terrible with this guy. If you're running a couple of the 5-cost ones in like an Odd Warrior, is this good enough as a like late game bomb that also becomes like late game removal? Maybe. There are a couple pretty decent ones at 5, but you have to like have played them already in order for this to be good. I don't know how to build a deck around this card, but it seems half decent. I imagine we'll see some of it in Standard. I just don't know if it's good enough for a while. Rancor, 4 mana, deal 2 damage to all minions, gain 2 armor for each destroyed. I feel like this card is really decent. The thing is, at 4 mana, deal 2 isn't that great. If you're up against like a piratey deck that has a bunch of 2 health things on board, this cleans up and then gives you a bunch of armor, which is really good. But a lot of things have 3 health, and I imagine this isn't actually going to finish off a lot of threats. Rokhara, 3 mana 2/3 rush. After a friendly minion attacks and survives, give it +1/+1. Town Crier tutors this. If you have a bunch of pirates out going into turn 3, you can play this, trade with it, and just attack face with your other ones, and you're buffing the whole board, and if it's not removed, you get to do it all again the next turn. I think this card is pretty decent. It is likely that Pirate Warrior will run this, and is likely that Galakron Warrior would run this if Galakron Warrior ends up being something. Stonemaul Anchorman, 5 mana 4/5 rush, frenzy, draw a card, pirate. This is a decent body for rush and draw a card. And then if you are running Sauerfang, this gets to come back and draw you a card again and rush. It is a pirate, so maybe that matters for Ankar. I don't know, this card could be playable. I think if you're playing this, you're doing it to make your Sauerfang better. Warsong Envoy, 1 mana 1/3, gain +1 attack for each damaged character. This card seems really good with charge to me. So you could play this and Whirlwind, and if there were a bunch of minions on both sides of the field, you just get to hit your opponent in the face for a ton of damage. If you have a couple of minions and your opponent has like 7, you could play this, Whirlwind, charge, Bloodsworn Mercenary, and get to hit face for most of your opponent's life. I don't know how viable that's going to be, but it could be something. Whirlwind Combatant, 4 mana 2/6, Battlecry and Frenzy, deal 1 damage to all other minions. If this had Taunt, I would think it was good, or if it had Rush even, but it doesn't, so I'm not impressed. Finally, the neutrals. We have Barrens Blacksmith, 5 mana 3/5, Frenzy, give your other minions +2/+2. Anything that wants this effect, I don't think reliably activates the Frenzy. Anything that reliably activates the Frenzy, I don't think really cares about this effect, so slow for wild. Maybe Standard likes it. Barrens Trapper, 3 mana 2/4, your Death Rattle cards cost 1 less. This card impressed me a little bit at first glance, but my instincts are telling me it's not that great. There are a few really good 1 mana Death Rattles, but there aren't that many, and even in a world where there are, a deck that wants to run enough 1 mana Death Rattles to make this card nuts is going to play them on the turns leading up to when you can play this card, so you're not going to have a lot to actually use by the time you play this card. It is interesting. Undertaker is back, so now's the time, if ever. Blade Master Samuro, 4 mana 1/6 Rush Frenzy, deal damage equal to this minion's attack to all enemy minions. Nitro Boost Poison is really good with this. Cold Blood, Power Overwhelming, Inner Rage, and Inner Fire. Hand buffs, Apotheosis. There's so many easy ways to buff the attack in this card, and a lot of the time they're cards that you would include in your deck anyway. I imagine Blade Master Samuro is going to see a lot of play, especially in Standard, but even in a few places in a while. Burning Blade Acolyte, 5 mana 1/1, Death Rattle, summon a 5/8 Demon Spawn with Taunt for your opponent because they played Potion of Madness, stole this, and attacked it into one of your other guys. Even not in that scenario, Zephrys is going to give you Earthshock whenever this card exists. You could play it alongside like a backstab to kill it yourself, but then you've done 5 mana for a 5/8 taunt. How powerful is that actually? I would say not very. I'm sad this card isn't better because I think the art on it looks really good. Crossroads Gossiper, 3 mana 4/3, after a friendly secret is revealed, gain +2/+2. So I like this in Paladin. I don't know that Seeker Mage has a spot for this card. It can play Ancient Mysteries, Mad Scientist, and Cabal Lackey to get a secret on board before this comes down on curve. Oftentimes, those secrets don't actually protect this thing. It'll just go down to removal or to a trade or something. In Paladin, you have Never Surrender and Oh My Og, which are the secrets you want to play anyway. And both of those protect this quite well. If even one goes off, this is a 6/5 for 3 mana, which is incredible. Hunter, I feel the same way as Secret Mage. Like Freezing Trap protects this, but not much else does. Rogue. Secret Rogue. Kick. Crossroads Watchpost, 4 mana 4/6, can't attack. Whenever your opponent casts a spell, give your minions +1/+1. This is the slowest Watchpost, and I think it has the least threatening effect, so I think this is the least likely one to see play. Darkspear Berserker, 4 mana 5/7, Death Rattle, deal 5 damage to your hero. This card is better than Pitlord, but how good is Pitlord? Not very. Death's Head Cultist, 3 mana 2/4 Taunt, Death Rattle, restore 4 health to your hero. I think decks that play N'Zoth are interested in this card. 2/4 on 3 is pretty weak sauce, so that might actually hold it back significantly, but it is 3 mana 2/4 Taunt, restore 4 health, which is pretty good for a Warlock deck. And Warlocks like to run N'Zoth, so there's a chance we'll see this in Renalock. Fire Watchpost, 2 mana 2/4, can't attack. After your opponent draws a card, it costs 1 more, up to 10. This is the cheapest one, and it's also got the effect that I'm the most worried about. I feel like coining this out onto if your opponent had a slow hand is just going to win you the game right on the spot. It feels a lot like Yatagarasu in that way, if you've played Yu-Gi-Oh! Ever, I don't know. It's just kind of a card that if you have it at the right time, it just locks your opponent out of the game for the rest of the time. It's the type of effect that I don't really like. I hope this card isn't good because I feel like it's going to feel pretty bad. Gold Road Grunt, 5 mana 3/7 Taunt, Frenzy, gain armor equal to the damage taken. So, if you could guarantee that this would block like a 6 attack thing, this would be pretty good. But what's going to happen is your opponent's going to ping it with their hero power or something. You'll get 1 armor, great, and then they'll just trade with their big thing afterwards. This would be good off of Sauerfang because it's a taunt, but it's only going to gain you the 1 armor because Sauerfang actually activates all of the frenzies with his whirlwind effect. Gruntled Patron, 4 mana 3/3 frenzy, summon another Gruntled Patron. So you could play this with Warsong Commander on 7 and have kind of an old school Patron vibe. Patron does kind of have frenzy, right? It has to survive the damage in order to replicate itself, and this is 1 cheaper. That said, is this good with Defile? I don't know. This has very similar applications as Patron, but I think that Hearthstone is at a tempo these days where Patron just isn't as good as it used to be. Certainly not a Patron that can't go face. Hecklefang Hyena, 2 mana 2/4 beast, deal 3 damage to your hero. Darkleer does not run Flame Imp, and it does not run Vulgar Homunculus, so I don't imagine it would run this card. I don't know that there's another deck that wants to run a 2 mana 2/4 beast enough to accept the 3 damage to your hero. There have been a few cards this set that deal damage to your own hero. I'm wondering if cards like this maybe open up space for Molten Giant in other classes. I doubt it, but maybe a few sets down the line. Hog Rancher, 3 mana 3/2 Battlecry, summon a 2/1 Hog with Rush. I initially thought that the Hog Rancher themselves had Rush, and so I thought it was very good, but it does not, and so now I'm skeptical. Combined with the Hog, this is a 3 mana 5/3, which is not bad, and a slice of that has Rush, which is even better. Maybe some kind of early tempo deck could value this, maybe some odd deck in Wild could value this, but I do think that there are stronger things to do for 3 mana in Wild than this. Horde Operative, another overrated card. 3 mana 3/4, Battlecry, copy your opponent's secrets and put them into play. So this card is worse than Eater of Secrets at removing your opponent's secrets because this card does not remove your opponent's secrets. It gives you copies of them, so it can be helpful in that regard against Secret Mage, but that doesn't even really do much. Like, they know what the secrets are, so they have the information on how to play around them. You then know what the secrets are, which is great, but you still have to deal with the secrets themselves, and you haven't responded to Secret Mage's board at all. You've just kind of developed a 3 for it. I don't think that this is a good tech against Secret Mage, unless you're Secret Mage. So if there is a meta where there are a ton of your matchups are secret matchups, and you are yourself a secret deck, this is a really good card because it's a catch-up mechanic. Like, if your opponent is ahead of you and has a bunch of secrets, you get to play this one card and also have a bunch of secrets. So all of your effects that care about you having secrets are activated by you playing this one card that creates a bunch of them. This card is also good at getting Ice Block. I think this is a better card at getting Ice Block than any other way to get an Ice Block from your opponent. Kazan Mystic is really good at removing an Ice Block and getting an Ice Block if your opponent only has Ice Block up. But if your opponent has any other secret, it's only a 50% chance, and then for each additional secret, it's less likely. Whereas if your opponent has Ice Block, this will always get it. So if you're up against like a Mizaki Mage with Raza Priest, you get the Ice Block, and it doesn't matter that your opponent has one because they can only kill you one time, and your Ice Block prevented that death. So then you just clean up the Mizaki and heal a little bit the following turn. Even then, I can't imagine teching this for something like that. My biggest opinion on this is that it's not good against Secret Mage unless you are Secret Mage. Injured Marauder, 4 mana 5/10 Taunt, deal 6 damage to this minion. This is crazy off of Oaken Summons. So 4 mana 5/10 Taunt, gain 6 armor. Pretty good. The argument for Zul'Drak is it's better with Spreading Plague. So on 10, you can play Zul'Drak and then get additional value out of your Spreading Plague. And it helps muddy the res pool of Big Priest. I think that Big Priest has gone past the time where messing up their res pool is an effective way to interact with them. I think the difference is the upgrade of Yasha-Arj into Blood of Ga'Hoon. Yasha-Arj could only get you stuff out of your deck so many times, and then you had nothing left in your deck, and sure, resurrecting a 10/10 is great, but if you resurrect a 10/10 and a couple of like garbage minions, your opponent just has to respond to the 10/10 and ignore the other ones. Whereas every time you roll a Blood of Ga'Hoon, you get the Blood of Ga'Hoon and like a Colossus out of your deck or something, because it hasn't pulled those cards out, it's just made copies. So boards tend to be more powerful, more reliably with Big Priest, and I don't think taking a strict downgrade on a minion is worth not having this be so much better against aggro. Injured Marauder contests Cabal Crystal Runner and Occult Conjurer now, and Zul'Drak did not. This is a huge upgrade to Oaken Summons. I think you play this over Zul'Drak every time. Kargal Battlescar, 7 mana 5/5, summon a 5/5 lookout for each watch post you've summoned this game. I don't think the watch posts are good enough, and I think part of the problem with them is that they aren't all odd or even costed. If they were all odd, maybe you could build an odd deck with this as a big payoff, but I just feel like they don't go in anything. I can't even imagine what I'd do with it. Some of the watch posts seem like they'd be good in certain things, but I'd be surprised if Standard manages to make a reliable deck with this. Kazakus, Golem Shaper, 4 mana 3/3. If your deck has no 4-cost cards, build a custom golem. The effects on the golem are like lifesteal, deal some damage, copy the golem, that type of stuff. Overall, they seem a bit weaker than Kazakus potion effects, but the thing about them is they also come with a minion. The old potion was 2 effects. This one gives you a body and 2 effects. So the effects being a little bit weaker and also getting a minion is significant. My big criticism of this card is I think that the restriction of no 4-cost cards is pretty boring. When you run Kazakus as your Highlander incentive, as people used to after Reno rotated, before Kazakus rotated to Wild, you were running a Highlander deck, like your whole deck was affected by that card. Kazakus is just kind of like, are your other 4-drops pretty weak? Why don't you run this instead? I don't know, it just seems significantly less epic. I would have much rather have had you can't include anything in your deck that costs 6 or more, or you can't include any class minions or something like that. Something that defines the whole deck and not just a slot. I can't really decide where I'd put this in Wild. Every deck seems to have a powerful, unskippable 4-drop. The Highlander decks obviously have the other Kazakus. Paladin has Call to Arms. Hunter has Dragonbane. There are so many cards that you just can't afford not to include. Where are you going to find a space for this? We'll see. I'm certainly going to test around with it. I want this card to be good because I'm attached to Kazakus as a character. I'd like to play with him in a new form, but we'll see. Kindling Elemental, 1 mana, 1/2 elemental, battlecry. The next elemental you play costs 1 less. Obviously, this makes elemental decks better. It means you can play elementals a turn sooner. Playing cards a turn sooner is really powerful. When I look at this card, I think, how good is a 0 mana 1/2? Because you can play this as a 0 mana 1/2. You can run it with Glacial Shard and Firefly and play this, then play one of those in an aggressive deck, right? You could play it in Odd Demon Hunter. You could play it in Aggro Druid, just as a free 1/2. Is a free 1/2 good? It might be in decks like that. I think it's more likely to get played in that way in Wild than it is to enable an elemental archetype. Lushwater Mercenary. 2 mana 3/2. If you control a Murloc, gain +1/+1. So you can play that new 1-cost Murloc on 1. You can play Tiny Fin in this on 2. There are a bunch of 2-cost things in this set that value having a Murloc already on board, alongside Primal Fin Murloc guy. So there's just a lot of good turn 2 Murlocs now, and you could run a deck that values Tiny Fin. I'm excited to make Murloc Shaman after this set comes out. Lushwater Scout, 2 mana 1/3 Murloc. After you summon a Murloc, give it +1 attack and rush. Broom, I think, does this better. It's half the mana. It has rush itself. That said, this is a Murloc, so maybe. It does give your other Murlocs +1 attack when you play them. Could be good. Seems slow to me. Mancrick, 3 mana 3/4. Help Mancrick find his wife. She was last seen somewhere in your deck. Cast when drawn, summon a 3/10 Mancrick who immediately attacks the enemy hero. I don't like this card. And the reason I don't like it is because it's none of the fun of why this quest was a meme in actual World of Warcraft. And it's all of the tragedy. The wife is depicted dead on the card. I'm just sad looking at this thing. It doesn't make me feel like I'm getting trolled in the Barrens by a bunch of doofuses who understand that the quest is confusing and want to waste a bunch of my time. Mechanically, though, this card is pretty cool. So it's a 3 mana 3/4 that shuffles a cast when drawn 3/10 that attacks right away into your deck. Felderai Strider, Ticketmaster, Shuffle Rogue deck is built for effects like this. You have Stowaway to tutor this card back out. This is nice compared to Ticketmaster because it's a battle cry and not a death rattle, so you can spend your 3 mana 3/4 body however way you actually want to. You can pressure with it or value trade it and still have your thing in your deck to be tutored later, or to just high roll top deck the next turn. And it costs 3, so you can play Cuddy, Stabby, Scabby guy and then play this alongside it. Decks like Darklair that draw their whole deck really fast might actually consider this because you can draw through your deck really fast. Find the 3/10 really early after having played Mancrick. It seems a little slow for Darklair itself, but it's something to think about. I don't think the average aggro deck actually plays this because 3 mana 3/4 is super mediocre. It's not that comparable to Felderai Strider, because Felderai Strider shuffles 3 copies of the thing into your deck, so you're likely to draw at least 1 or 2 of them in the next few turns. This only shuffles 1, so a lot of the time you're going to go the whole rest of the game without seeing the payoff card. When you do see that payoff card, though, a free 3/10 is ridiculous, especially because it deals 3 damage to your opponent's face right away. Give it Taunt. I don't know, whatever else you want to do with it. Morshan Watchpost. 3 mana, 3/5, can't attack after your opponent plays a minion, summon a 2/2 grunt. This might be incredible, this might be terrible. You coin it out on 2, and then if your opponent doesn't already have a big board presence, they give you a bunch of 2/2s in order to be able to take care of this thing. They could just trade into your 2/2s and ignore this. It's really hard for me to evaluate these Watchposts. I could see them being subtly fantastic, or I could see them being hot, steaming trash. Oasis Thrasher, 2 mana, 2/3, Beast, Frenzy, deal 3 damage to the enemy hero. So 2 mana, 2/3, if your opponent can't kill it in 1 blow, it deals 3 damage to the enemy hero. I think this is worse than some things with Death Rattle deal 3 a lot of the time, but it is a beast. So if there's an aggressive hunter deck that has beast synergy, this is certainly a consideration. Peon, 2 mana, 2/3, Frenzy, add a random spell from your class to your hand. The only deck that I can think of that might want an effect like this is Quest Mage, because Quest Mage values minions that produce spells. But I think that this is mostly worse than Wandmaker, and Wandmaker usually doesn't make the cut in that deck anyway. Primordial Protector, 8 mana, 6/6 elemental, draw your highest cost spell, summon a random minion with the same cost. This is like a Spiteful Summoner that draws you a card and is an elemental. And you don't have to only include high-cost spells in your deck. You can run low-cost spells. There is an even mage deck on the fringe of viability that runs Spiteful Summoner, but now has a 2 mana spell that it wants to run. I could see this card replacing Spiteful Summoner in that deck. I think this is going to be a pretty powerful standard card, and I think that this is going to go into decks that really want to play a high-cost spell. It's almost good enough for LPG, like you play this on 8 to tutor the LPG, and then you get like a random 7-cost minion. But then you have to spend your whole next turn playing the LPG. It's not like Tortolan where it tutors it out and also plays it. This does have kind of the good kind of redundancy with that style of effect, but unlike Tortolan, it's not that great after you've already cast the LPG. You don't really want to put a bunch of random things on the board to muddy up your Potion of Illusion or Barista. This card does seem solid. I imagine it's going to see a lot of play in Standard, and maybe it'll see some play in Wild too. Ratchet Privateer, 3 mana, 4/3, Battlecry, give your weapon +1 attack, Pirate. I don't think this card goes into any deck in Wild. The one where I would maybe consider it is Odd Rogue, but even Odd Rogue I think has gone past the time where it values a 3 mana 4/3 with a mild effect. Maybe this replaces Evil Miscreant in that deck because you can hero power on 2 and then play this and you have a 3/2 weapon. I do think that Kingsbane Rogue might value this over the 1 mana give your weapon +1 attack and immune card. That's how little I think of that card. That said, this doesn't return a Penflinger to your hand, and that card would. Razormane Raider, 5 mana, 5/6, Frenzy, attack a random enemy minion. If you want to do some kind of like Sauerfang OTK, I think that this is a good card for that. You just set yourself to be able to clear the board and then play Sauerfang, and then if you've played 2 of these guys, you get to deal 10 damage to your opponent's face. Seems like a lot of setup. This might be good with True Aim Crescent. You play True Aim Crescent the turn before, and then you attack into something that you want to trade with. This kills it and then hits your opponent in the face. Overall, this seems like a mediocre card to me. A Shadow Hunter Vol'jin we've played with. South Sea Scoundrel, 4 mana, 5/5 Pirate. Discover a card in your opponent's deck, they draw theirs as well. I could see this for like Renalock Mirrors. It accelerates them into fatigue a little bit, allows you to maybe get an extra copy of Gul'dan. Seems like a bit of a leap to me. You don't necessarily want to give your opponent card advantage most of the time, and I think that there are better things you can tech for in the mirror, but maybe. Spirit Healer, 4 mana, 3/6, after you cast a holy spell, give a random friendly minion +2 health. This is a neutral card, and Lightsteed is not, so there's that, but I think Lightsteed is better than this, so if that's seen no play, I don't know why this would. Sunwell Initiate, 3 mana, 3/4, Frenzy, gain Divine Shield. I feel like if this came out 3 years ago, this card would have been insane. But it's not 3 years ago, is it? I bet you this card will see some play in Standard, but I don't know that it's good enough in Wild, even in odd decks now. Talented Arcanist, Battlecry, your next spell this turn has spell damage +2. Mage has had a card like this, and it wasn't very good. However, this card is neutral and has better stats, so a 1-3 is much better than a 2-1, even though this is not an elemental. This could go well with like Whirlwind, Spirit Lash, Maelstrom Portal, stuff like that. For some effects, this is better than Moarg, but I think the biggest thing this goes with is Spirit Lash, and Moarg is already getting cut from Raza Priest, so I don't know that this will make the cut in there. Turaho Brave, 6 mana 4/8 Frenzy, destroy a random enemy minion. If this had Taunt or Rush, I would say it was good, but it does not, so I don't think it is. Toads of the Wild, 2 mana 2/2 Taunt. If you're holding a nature spell, gain +2 health, Beast. If all the spells Aggro Druid is running are nature spells, then I think this card could actually be pretty decent. 2 mana 2/4 Taunt is good, but you run it with the 2 mana 2/3. That makes your next Taunt cost 2 less and play them in the same turn. 2 mana for 4/7 stats is nothing to scoff at. But I doubt they will be. I don't know what else wants to run this. I think this is an aggressive card, even though it has Taunt, so we'll see if something finds a way to break it. Finally, we have Venomous Scorpid, 3 mana 1/3 poisonous, battlecry, discover a spell, beast. I think this is one of the better poisonous minions, as much as that says. I also think this is one of the better discover a spell minions. Even still, I don't think it's that great. I don't think you'll ever choose to include this in your deck, but it's kind of a cool card. And that about wraps it up. I hope you enjoyed my review. Let me know in the comments what cards you're most excited about, what you thought of my takes, and which cards you're the most scared of. Make sure to check out my videos for the other classes if you haven't seen them yet, and I'll see you next time.